Welcome back everyone. Today, we're continuing with the next part of this series, called What If Goku Remembered the Saiyans? My name is Ash. Please, for me, drop a like and subscribe to the page. Also leave your comments down below. With that, let's begin. Bardock blinked as he took in his surroundings. A gentle breeze rustled the grass around him, the field stretching out in all directions under a bright blue sky. It was Earth. How he had gotten here was a mystery, but his mind immediately turned to more pressing concerns. His father. Where was his father? He scanned the area, his sharp eyes locking onto a cluster of Namekians standing nearby. Their green skin and white robes were unmistakable, but among them were faces that pulled at his memory. His mother was there, standing tall and composed. Beside her, his Uncle Raditz looked on, his usual arrogant smirk absent, replaced by a look of quiet contemplation. Off to the side, Dende tended to Piccolo, his small hands glowing with healing energy. In the distance, Bardock's eyes caught another familiar figure. Vegeta stood apart from the others, his arms crossed and his scowl deep. The Prince of all Saiyans looked furious, his posture rigid with frustration. Suddenly, Bardock heard a voice echo in his head. Hey, Kakarot's familiar tone cut through his swirling thoughts. King Kai's letting me talk telepathically, from Namek to all of you. Frieza is dead, and I'll be home soon. But I can't talk anymore. See you soon. The connection went silent, but the weight of the message lingered. Kakarot killed Frieza, Vegeta mumbled, his tone low and almost disbelieving. Raditz, standing nearby, folded his arms with a smug grin. I saw it with my own eyes. He transformed. His hair turned golden, his power skyrocketed, and he beat the crap out of Frieza. Vegeta's scowl deepened, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. He's a Super Saiyan? He muttered, as if the words themselves were a curse. But I am the Prince of all Saiyans. I should have been the first Super Saiyan. I should be the strongest in the universe. Raditz raised an eyebrow, smirking slightly. Well, you weren't. Sucks for you, huh? Vegeta ignored the jab, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. I will find out how Kakarot became a Super Saiyan, and I will surpass him. I will claim my rightful place as the strongest in the universe. Bardock watched the exchange silently, his thoughts turning inward. His father had done what no one thought possible, defeating Frieza. But now, what would happen? His gaze drifted back to Vegeta, whose simmering fury was a stark contrast to the Namekians' quiet relief. Nearly a week later, Bardock sat cross-legged on the floor of his temporary room at Capsule Corp. The once bustling building now buzzed with the low hum of unusual activity as its residents adjusted to their new circumstances. The Namekians had been graciously offered sanctuary by Bulma until they could return to their home planet. With their Dragon Balls following Guru to Earth, they only had to wait 3 months, 1 Namekian year, before the orbs would become active again. When the time came, they would wish Krillin back to life and use the second wish to send the Namekians home. It was a simple plan, but the waiting gnawed at everyone's patience. The Saiyans, however, were another matter entirely. Unlike the Namekians, they had no home to return to. Vegeta had initially declared his intent to claim Frieza's former empire and rule the galaxy, but Raditz had quickly put an end to that idea, by force if necessary. Since then, Vegeta had thrown himself into relentless training, his obsession with surpassing Kakarot driving him to the brink of exhaustion. Raditz, not one to be left behind, had taken to training just as fiercely, though mostly to ensure Vegeta didn't get too far ahead. Bardock, however, found solace in meditation. Sitting quietly in his dimly lit room, he let his thoughts drift. The week had been surreal, a whirlwind of emotions and revelations. The return of the Saiyan race rested on the shoulders of a small, fractured group, but something in him stirred, a hope that they could rebuild stronger than before. His eyes snapped open as he sensed someone approaching. A soft knock echoed against the door frame before Bulma poked her head inside, her bright blue hair framing her curious expression. Why so serious? She asked, leaning casually against the doorway. Just meditating, Bardock replied, his tone somber. Bulma stepped inside, her arms crossed as she studied him. Don't worry, kiddo, she said with a reassuring smile. Your dad will be home soon. Bardock turned to her, his sharp eyes meeting hers. Have you heard from him? Bulma's smile faltered slightly, but she kept her voice light. He sent a message before he left Namek, but I haven't heard much since then. Knowing Kakarot, though, he's probably flying through space like it's a walk in the park. Bardock nodded, though the weight of uncertainty still lingered. "Yeah, I just hope he's okay." "He'll be fine," Bulma said firmly. "Your dad's tougher than anyone I've ever met. If anyone can handle this, it's him." Kakarot exhaled sharply as he pushed himself off the ground, finishing his 1000th push-up under the immense pressure of 100x Earth's gravity. His muscles flexed effortlessly, not even strained. To him, this was just a light warm-up, a way to pass the endless hours of space travel. Despite his newfound strength, he didn't want to grow complacent. Training was second nature, a constant in his life, but no amount of exercise could fully distract him from his thoughts. His mind drifted back to the fight with Frieza. He could still feel the sting of rage bubbling under his skin every time he thought about it, especially when he remembered how the tyrant had killed Bardock. Though Bulma had reassured him that Bardock had been successfully wished back, the memory still tore at him. Anger and guilt flared inside him whenever he let his guard down. He stopped mid-thought, frozen, as the familiar sensation of power surged within him. Before he could even react, his hair flashed golden, his eyes shifted to turquoise, and his aura erupted into a brilliant golden blaze. His energy exploded outward, rattling the walls of the gravity chamber. It was happening again. "Frieza!" Kakarot roared, his voice echoing through the small chamber. His fists clenched tightly, his nails digging into his palms. Without thinking, he slammed his fist into the floor. The impact left a deep dent in the reinforced metal and sent tremors throughout the ship. His transformation had taken over again, wild and untamed. This was the 10th time since the battle that he had involuntarily turned into a Super Saiyan. He still hadn't mastered the form. It came and went without warning, his emotions too closely tied to the transformation. Every flare of anger, every spike of frustration risked unleashing his full power. Suddenly, the ship's computer chimed in, its automated voice calm but urgent. "Warning, ship's course disturbed. Collision with planet imminent." The voice cut through Kakarot's fury like a blade. He gasped, his golden aura flickering out as he forced himself back to normal. His hair returned to its usual black, his teal eyes dimming. "Ship's course?" Kakarot muttered, blinking as his surroundings came back into focus. "Planet?" The floor beneath him shook violently as the ship rattled from the disturbance. He leaped to his feet, rushing out of the gravity chamber and into the control room. On the view screen, a planet loomed closer and closer, its surface filling the display. The ship's computer spoke again, activating emergency braking. Crash imminent. Kakarot braced himself as the ship began to slow abruptly. The intense deceleration sent a shudder through the entire vessel. He grabbed onto the nearest console to steady himself as alarms blared around him. Moments later, the ship smashed into the planet's surface with a deafening crash. The impact sent debris flying in all directions, leaving a massive crater where the ship had landed. Smoke and dust billowed into the air, obscuring the view outside. Kakarot coughed as he waved a hand in front of his face, clearing the air. He glanced at the diagnostics panel, watching streams of data scroll across the screen. Despite the rough landing, the ship had held up remarkably well. Its sane spacepod-inspired design had ensured minimal damage. The diagnostics confirmed that only a few minor repairs were needed. He frowned. "Looks like I'm stuck here until I can find the parts to fix this thing. Guess I'll have to hope this planet has what I need." Kakarot turned to the computer, his fingers tapping across the console as he queried information about the planet. The ship's database held little information, but what it did reveal was promising. The planet was inhabited, its population advanced enough to have spaceports and technology that could potentially aid him. Several minutes later, Kakarot stepped out of the ship, taking a deep breath of the planet's fresh air. He was dressed in a new fighting uniform, the green fabric vibrant against the black undershirt beneath it. His boots crunched against the rocky surface of the crater as he took in his surroundings. The landscape stretched out before him, vast and barren in this area, but he could see the distant glimmer of a city skyline. "Good," Kakarot murmured to himself. "At least I didn't crash into anyone's backyard. Last thing I need is to hurt innocent people." Closing his eyes, he focused on sensing the life energy around him. There were power levels in the distance, some faint, others stronger. He turned toward the city, his eyes narrowing as he locked onto the sources of energy. Without hesitation, he launched himself into the air. The wind rushed past him as he soared toward the city, determined to find the resources he needed. and maybe, just maybe, some answers about this unexpected detour. Vegeta stood in the center of the gravity room Bulma had constructed for him, his breath coming in sharp, controlled exhales. Sweat glistened on his forehead, dripping onto the polished floor as he threw a precise punch into the air. His movements were sharp and calculated, each strike loaded with frustration and determination. He growled under his breath, the weight of his fury driving him harder. Kakarot, a low-class Saiyan, had achieved what Vegeta had spent his entire life striving for, the legendary transformation that had haunted their race's history, whispered about as the pinnacle of their power, a Super Saiyan. And yet, it wasn't him, the prince of all Saiyans, who had reached it first. It was Kakarot. The thought was an insult he couldn't bear. With a roar, Vegeta hurled an energy blast across the room. The fiery orb of power crackled as it tore through the air. Before it could reach the far wall, Vegeta vanished, reappearing in its path. He swatted it aside like a fly, sending it careening to the side. He phased out again, appearing above it, swatting it down with the same ease. Each time, he moved faster, forcing himself to push harder, draining his reflexes to the limit. The energy blast spiraled back toward him. This time, Vegeta planted his feet and crossed his arms in front of his face. The blast collided with him full force, the impact driving him backward across the floor. His boots screeched against the ground, leaving scorched marks on the reinforced metal. When the blast dissipated, Vegeta dropped to one knee, his body trembling with exhaustion. His legs shook, and he tried to rise, but his strength gave out, and he collapsed onto all fours. His chest heaved as he gasped for air, his energy completely drained from the relentless punishment he had inflicted on himself. In another part of Capsule Corp, Raditz tilted his head to the side, narrowly dodging a punch from Nappa. The two Saiyans moved in a blur across the gravity chamber, set to 50 times Earth's gravity. "You'll have to do better than that if you want to land a hit," Raditz taunted, a sly grin on his face. "Don't get cocky," Nappa barked. His aura exploded outward in a fiery red glow as he shouted, "Kaioken X10!" The power boost surged through him, and he charged at Raditz with renewed ferocity. Nappa unleashed a flurry of punches and kicks, each strike faster and stronger than before. Raditz dodged as best he could, weaving and ducking through the storm of attacks, but Nappa's speed was too much. A heavy punch connected with Raditz's chin, sending the younger Saiyan flying backward into the wall. The impact shook the room, but Raditz recovered quickly. He snarled and launched himself back at Nappa, his fists blazing with energy. His punches and kicks came in rapid succession, forcing Nappa on the defensive. The older Saiyan blocked and parried as best he could, but Raditz's precision was unrelenting. Nappa saw an opening and shot his knee into Raditz's stomach. The blow knocked the air out of Raditz's lungs, causing him to lurch forward. Nappa grinned, capitalizing on the moment. He brought both fists down in a hammer strike on Raditz's head, sending him crashing to the floor with a resounding thud. Raditz groaned, rubbing his head as he pushed himself back up to his feet. "Not bad," he said, his tone grudgingly respectful. "You're definitely getting stronger, but you still can't win." Raditz's aura ignited in a bright red flare as he activated his own Kaioken, doubling his power. The surge of energy propelled him forward like a rocket. He slammed his fist into Nappa's face, sending the older Saiyan stumbling back. Before Nappa could regain his footing, Raditz followed up with a relentless series of blows, each strike landing with bone-crushing force. Nappa tried to defend himself, throwing a wild punch at Raditz's midsection, but the younger Saiyan vanished in an instant. Nappa's eyes darted around, searching for his opponent, but before he could react, Raditz reappeared behind him. "Too slow," Raditz growled. He gathered a ball of energy in his palm and slammed it into Nappa's back. The explosion rocked the chamber, filling it with smoke and shaking the walls. When the dust cleared, Nappa was on the ground, breathing heavily, his body sprawled out from the force of the attack. Raditz stepped forward and extended a hand, his expression softening. "I think we've done enough for now," he said, his voice calm. Nappa grunted, reaching up and clasping Raditz's hand. "Fine," he muttered, a trace of irritation in his voice, "but don't think I'm letting you have the upper hand for long." Raditz smirked as he pulled Nappa to his feet. "We'll see about that." King Kai stood with his arms crossed, watching Krillin as the bald warrior unleashed a flurry of punches and kicks into the air. The red aura of the Kaioken surrounded him, pulsing with power as he moved with precision and speed. Each strike was sharper than the last, a testament to the intense training he'd undergone in the past week. King Kai adjusted his antennae, a look of approval crossing his face. He's really come a long way, he muttered to himself. Krillin's improvements were undeniable. His mastery of the Kaioken technique was better than anyone King Kai had ever seen. But it wasn't just technique. There was something different in Krillin's eyes now, a fire, a determination that hadn't been there before. I guess dying twice because you weren't strong enough will do that to a guy, King Kai mused quietly. He let out a small sigh, watching as Krillin pushed himself even harder, determined not to fall behind the others again. Kakarot frowned as he spotted plumes of smoke rising on the horizon. His pace quickened as he flew toward the source, his green fighting uniform fluttering in the rushing wind. "What's going on here?" he muttered under his breath. As he drew closer, the answer became clear. A city was under attack. Chaos reigned in the streets below as humanoid invaders wreaked havoc, their energy blasts tearing through buildings and sending civilians fleeing in all directions. Among the chaos, a group of small pink warriors with disproportionately large heads fought back valiantly. Despite their courage, they were clearly outmatched. The invaders were stronger and more ruthless, picking off the defenders one by one. Kakarot's sharp eyes caught one of the humanoid invaders charging a blast aimed directly at a pink warrior. Without thinking, Kakarot surged forward to intercept. But before he could reach the scene, the pink warrior vanished, disappearing in a blink of speed. What the? How did he move that fast? Kakarot wondered, momentarily stunned. In the next instant, the pink warrior reappeared behind the invader, slamming a fist into his back. The force of the blow sent the humanoid stumbling forward, but he recovered quickly. The invader turned, sneering as he caught the pink warrior's wrist in a tight grip. "Ready to die?" the invader growled, his laugh cold and cruel. Before the invader could strike, his fist was stopped mid-swing. A larger hand had caught it, gripping tightly. The invader turned, his sneer fading as he found himself staring at Kakarot's calm yet intense face. "What's going on here?" Kakarot asked, his voice steady but firm. The invader yanked at his captured fist, but couldn't budge it. "Beat it," he snapped, "or you'll suffer the wrath of Lord Frieza." At the mention of the name, Kakarot's expression darkened. "Frieza, huh?" he said coolly. "I don't think anyone will be suffering his wrath anytime soon." With a flick of his wrist, Kakarot sent the invader flying. The warrior slammed into the ground several feet away, unconscious from the sheer force of the backhand. Kakarot turned in time to see another blast aimed at one of the pink defenders. He phased out of sight, reappearing just in time to block the attack with his hand. The invaders quickly realized that Kakarot was no ordinary opponent. One by one, they redirected their efforts toward him. Unfortunately for them, they were no match for the warrior who had slain their master. Kakarot moved like a whirlwind, his strikes swift and precise. Within seconds, the entire group of attackers lay unconscious on the ground, scattered like fallen leaves. "Thank you," one of the pink aliens said, approaching cautiously. "You're welcome," Kakarot replied, his tone warm. "What happened here?" "Frieza has taken an interest in our planet," the alien explained. "He sent these warriors to wipe us out." Kakarot's gaze shifted to the unconscious bodies of the invaders. "You won't have to worry about them anymore," he said confidently. The alien's face showed relief, but was still tinged with fear. "I just hope Frieza doesn't send more." Kakarot shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "Frieza's dead. He won't be giving you any more trouble." The alien's eyes widened in shock. "Dead? How is that possible?" Kakarot's smile grew slightly. "Let's just say he won't be coming back." The pink alien's shock gave way to gratitude. "How can we thank you for saving us?" "My ship crash landed here," Kakarot explained. "I need a few parts to repair it." "That shouldn't be a problem," the alien replied quickly. "Our planet has advanced technology. If we can't repair your ship, we can provide you with another to get you where you need to go. It's the least we can do for someone who saved our planet." "Thank you," Kakarot said sincerely, "but really, it was no trouble." The alien's expression grew somber. "Those men, they killed 10 of our best warriors." Kakarot's face fell slightly. "I'm sorry to hear that. We'll move on and rebuild," the alien said with quiet determination. "But in the meantime, come. Let Yardrat offer you our hospitality." Kakarot nodded appreciatively. "Thank you. I do have one question, though." "What is that?" Kakarot asked, tilting his head in curiosity. The Yardratian spokesman looked at him, confused for a moment. What is what? Well, earlier, I saw one of your warriors fighting off the invaders, Kakarot explained, gesturing toward the city. He dodged an energy blast so quickly, I couldn't even follow his movements. I was wondering how he did that. Ah, you must be referring to the instant transmission technique, the spokesman replied, a hint of pride in his tone. It's a skill unique to our people. It allows the user to instantly move from one location to another, as long as they can sense a nearby energy signature. Kakarot's eyes widened, and a grin spread across his face. Wow, that sounds incredible. Instantly moving like that, it could be so useful. It is, the spokesman agreed, nodding. As a species, we Yardratians aren't particularly strong, but we've developed a number of techniques that make up for our lack of raw power. Kakarot scratched the back of his head, thinking about the possibilities. Do you think you could teach me this instant transmission thing? The spokesman smiled warmly. Of course, we would be happy to teach you. Bulma leaned back in her luxurious bathtub, letting the hot water ease the tension from her shoulders. Steam filled the bathroom, curling around her as she closed her eyes and let out a contented sigh. After a long, chaotic day, this was exactly what she needed. The peaceful moment didn't last long, though. The shrill ring of her phone echoed through the house, shattering the quiet. Groaning, Bulma reached for the phone on the nearby counter, sloshing water over the edge of the tub in the process. "Hello?" she said, trying to keep the annoyance out of her voice. "Hey, babe, it's me," came Kakarot's familiar voice through the line, slightly crackling but unmistakable. A smile instantly replaced her irritation. "Hey, what's up? I figured you'd be home in the next day or so." "Well," Kakarot began, his tone a little sheepish, "I ran into a bit of a snag. The ship got damaged and crash landed." Bulma's smile disappeared, replaced by concern. "That's terrible. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Kakarot assured her quickly. "The natives here are really nice, and they said they can fix the ship, but it might take a while." Bulma leaned back against the edge of the tub, relief washing over her. "I'm glad you're all right, but that's too bad. I was looking forward to giving you your congratulations for beating Frieza present." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and Bulma could swear she heard a faint tension in Kakarot's breathing when she mentioned Frieza's name. "That sounds great," he said eventually, though his voice seemed distant. "What's wrong?" Bulma asked gently, her tone softening. Kakarot hesitated before speaking. I might not be coming back right away, even after the ship is repaired." Bulma sat up straighter in the tub, frowning. "Why not?" "Well," Kakarot said, choosing his words carefully, "I didn't tell you how the ship got damaged. While I was training, I transformed into a Super Saiyan again. It happened when I was thinking about Frieza, and I couldn't stop it. I can't control when it happens, Bulma." Her brow furrowed as she listened. "You mean it's still happening? Even now?" "Yeah," he admitted. "It's completely unpredictable. I don't want to put you or Earth in danger if I lose control. I need to figure out how to stop the spontaneous transformations before I can come back." Bulma sighed, understanding the weight of what he was saying, but still feeling the sting of disappointment. "So, when do you think you'll be able to come back?" "I don't know for sure," Kakarot replied honestly, "but I promise I'll work as hard as I can. As soon as I can control it, I'll come back." "I understand," Bulma said quietly, her voice steady despite the emotion stirring within her. "Just promise me you'll try to hurry. I'll have a special surprise waiting for you when you get here." There was a slight pause on the line, and then she heard Kakarot chuckle softly. "I look forward to that, my love." Hearing the warmth in his voice brought a small smile back to Bulma's face. "Stay safe, Kakarot." "I will," he said. "Take care, Bulma. I love you." The call ended, leaving Bulma sitting in her now lukewarm bath, her thoughts swirling with a mix of pride, worry, and anticipation.